You can't feel it not yet, but something waits under the ground you trust. Something old, something vast, something that remembers. Asterisk, and you wonder, though you don't know why, what lives in the silence beneath your feet. Not every volcano looks like a mountain. Not every danger roars. Some of the greatest forces in nature wait in complete stillness, buried deep, patient, invisible, until they are not. This is not a story of fantasy. It is real, more real than we like to admit, because somewhere beneath ancient lakes and sleepy plains, there are chambers of molten rock that stretch wider than entire cities. Chambers that have not moved for thousands of years. Chambers that remember fire. And every so often, every 100,000 years, or maybe more, one of them wakes. Not suddenly, not with warning, but with pressure. A rising that begins quietly. A shift so slow, no one notices, until one day the sky is gone. You may never have heard of it. The term is soft on the tongue, supervolcano. It doesn't shout, but it should, because this kind of volcano doesn't just erupt. It rewrites, it buries civilizations, darkens skies across continents, turns summers into winters, changes life, not in days, but in decades. And tonight, you will go there. You'll journey beneath the crust. You'll hear what scientists strain to detect. You'll drift through ash clouds that once covered the sun. You'll walk through forests that grew from lava, and you'll feel softly, strangely, that the story is not only about the earth, it's about you. Because pressure lives inside you, too unspoken, rising, waiting. And in the cracks of your own stillness, you will hear the echoes of something older. This is not fear. It is awareness. Supervolcanoes do not erupt to punish. They are not angry. They are not evil. They are clocks with no hands. They are reminders that the ground you walk on is not as still as it seems, that your place in this world is borrowed from fire and the signs. They are everywhere if you know how to listen. The earth swells, the air shifts. Tiny earthquakes whisper like fingers tapping on a door. But would we hear them? Would we believe them? Would we act? Or would we call it quiet until the sky turns gray? There's something haunting in knowing that an eruption the size of Yellowstone or Toba has happened before, not in myth, but in memory, carved in ice, in ash, in trees that stopped growing one summer long ago. And it can happen again. That's what makes this story different. You're not listening to the past. You're listening to something still unfolding. You are part of a planet that resets itself, not out of rage, but out of rhythm. And when it does, everything changes. But not all change is ending. Sometimes it is invitation. You will soon discover that supervolcanoes don't just destroy, they clear. They cleanse. They offer a strange, quiet question. If the world began again, what would we build? What would we leave behind? And what would we choose to carry forward? So lie back, close your eyes, and let your thoughts settle like ash on silent ground. The fire is far away, but its memory is close. It lives in stone, in silence, in the very breath of the earth. And tonight, you will go deeper than you ever have, because the planet is not just rock and water. It is story, and that story is still being written. You've heard bedtime stories that end with fire. This one begins with it. But what comes after? What grows in the silence that follows might change everything. So listen, breathe, and wait with the earth, because tonight you are lying on the chest of something that is still breathing, and one day it may open its eyes. Asterisk, you feel the floor beneath you cool, dependable, still. Whether it's a concrete sidewalk, a patch of earth, or warm kitchen tile, you rarely question its presence. It holds you, anchors you, carries the weight of your thoughts, your routines, your sleep. The ground seems final, a boundary between the known and the unknowable. But if you could peel back the crust beneath your feet, just gently, like lifting the skin of an orange, you'd see a very different world. A world not cold or still, but glowing, shifting, breathing, in slow waves of heat and time. Beneath the roots of trees, below the bones of cities, under the stone that's lasted millennia, there is movement. A deep, patient movement that doesn't rush, doesn't tire, doesn't stop. The Earth's outer layer. The crust is thinner than you think. On average, no thicker than the skin of an apple. This entire world, you've walked on all the roads, rivers, forests, homes, is resting on something fragile. A mosaic of plates, broken pieces, drifting slowly on seas of soft rock and molten current. And beneath that deeper still waits the mantle. Not liquid like water, not solid like stone, but something in between, hot enough to glow, slow enough to endure. It flows not in days or even centuries, but in silent plumes that rise over millions of years. Here, beneath the crust, heat rises like a whisper from the earth's hidden heart. It seeps upward, softening stone, reshaping matter, stirring long forgotten. Chambers. You cannot hear it, but the ground listens. You cannot feel it, but the rock remembers. Volcanoes are not born in violence. They begin in quiet. They start with warmth and time to forces that shape the world with gentle persistence. A supervolcano, the kind that can cradle entire continents in ash, is not loud. Not yet. Imagine a chamber growing slowly beneath a peaceful plain. No towering cone, no smoke, no fire, just a hollow swelling beneath the crust magma collecting in secret. A pool of heat the size of a city. Then the size of a sea dot. It does not ask for attention. It does not threaten. It waits, still and deep, feeding on pressure and patience. It listens to the shifting plates above, watches the surface change, and remembers. You walk above it, never knowing. You plant gardens, build homes, dream dreams, unaware of what sleeps below. But the earth has never promised permanence. Its silence is not safety. Its stillness is not peace. Geologists call these hidden reservoirs calderas, not the classic peaks of fiery fiction, but wide, flat landscapes with history beneath. Some hold lakes, others are fields, a few are tourist stops. But beneath their quiet surfaces is a memory of fire, a future no one can predict. The crust that holds them in is brittle, like glass under slow pressure. And the magma below it, though thick and heavy, rises with time, with heat, with the steady exhale of the planet's core. It pushes, waits, pushes again. Not with rage, but with certainty. Imagine Earth as an ancient heart beating only once every few million years. Each beat is a cycle of build-up and release. The quiet between is long enough for species to rise and fall, long enough for us to forget that the heart is even beating. Now, close your eyes, breathe slowly. Let your awareness drift downward, past the soles of your feet, through soil and stone, deeper, deeper, deeper until the light fades and the temperature rises. You are now in a place of warmth and pressure. Not fire, not flame, but the kind of heat that hums in your bones. You float beside a rising plume, a pillar of molten memory. You feel its patience. You feel its promise. It doesn't want to erupt. It doesn't wish to destroy. It simply exists, gathering, building, swelling, till the weight of waiting becomes too much. Until the lid above can no longer hold the breath below, and when that day comes, be it tomorrow or 100,000 years from now, it will not come all at once. There will be tremors, tiny and strange. A rising of land where no rise should be. Perhaps a shift in gases, a rumble beneath still waters, but that is not now. Now is stillness. Now is the quiet moment before anything changes. Now is the breath drawn in, not yet released, and in this pause you are safe. Cradled between the crust and the core, between fire and sky. You are part of the silence, part of the patience. Your heartbeat echoes the planet's deeper rhythm. For all its power, the earth does not rush. It does not shout its intentions. It simply builds, layer by layer, memory by memory. The past layered beneath the present balanced on the past. The oldest rocks on earth are older than the trees, older than bones, older than breath. They've seen continents drift like ships across molten seas. They've carried mountains on their backs and cradled oceans in their hollows. And still they rest beneath your feet listening. You are walking on the skin of something ancient. You do not have to fear it, but you should respect it. Because what waits below is neither evil nor kind. It is only inevitable. A supervolcano is not a villain. It is a reminder that stability is a story we tell ourselves, that beneath comfort there's always change. So tonight, as you lie still and the world quiets around you, remember this: there is power in silence, power in what we cannot see, cannot feel, but always rely on. And deep within the earth, that power stirs slow, warm, waiting. It doesn't knock on doors. It doesn't flash warning signs in the sky. It lives in the long game, in the spaces between tectonic sighs, and though you may never witness its rising, you are still a part of its timeline. The story of Earth holds you even as you sleep. And tomorrow, when you walk again across your steady floor, know that beneath your every step, a quiet pressure is writing its own future, not in haste, not in panic, but with the calm of stone, the patience of magma, and the power to turn stillness into sky. Asterisk, and yet this stillness is not truly still. The earth beneath, its crust inhales and exhales in re. You lie in stillness, but the ground beneath you is never still. The earth breathes slowly, deeply, endlessly, not in lungs or windpipes, but in slabs of crust drifting over molten seas. Every rise of a mountain, every crack in the soil, every sudden tremble beneath your feet, it's all part of the breath. You live on a planet made of puzzle pieces. These are the tectonic plates, massive fragments of Earth's crust, floating on the soft mantle like rafts on a subterranean ocean. They do not float aimlessly. They move with purpose, driven by heat from below and gravity above. They collide. They slide past each other. They pull apart. You cannot hear this motion. You cannot feel it. Move slower than time you care to. Notice, but it is happening beneath you always. And it is this slow, ceaseless motion that gives Earth its shape. The mountains are born in collisions, two plates crashing, folding, lifting stone like a breath held too long. The ocean floors spread open, creating new land in underwater silence. Rift valleys stretch where the crust pulls apart, exhaling long scars into the earth, and deep beneath these movements, the magma flows, watching. This is Earth's breathing, not like yours, not measured in seconds, but in millennia. May take 1,000,000 years. Each exhale may crumble continents. Imagine a sheet of ice floating on warm water. Push from one side, and it cracks. Heat it slightly from below, and it bends, breaks, slides apart. This is the crust, thin and brittle, but never idle. Sometimes the plates diverge, pulling away from each other like friends growing distant. In these places, new crust is born from the mantle's heat. Iceland sits atop such a boundary, where Earth opens its seams and lets new land rise. There, fire kisses the sky in quiet celebration of rebirth. Other times, plates converge, crashing together like opposing waves. One slips beneath the other, sinking back into the mantle, melting, changing. This is subduction, where land is swallowed whole and recycled by fire, where volcanoes form along arcs, marking the scars of these underwater collisions. And then there are transformed boundaries, where plates rub past each other, grinding without release. Stress builds, time waits, and then, in one sudden moment, the Earth's jerksand, we call it an earthquake. But these are not accidents. These are the rhythms of a living world. Even its silence is a kind of breath. Even its stillness is a preparation for motion. Look at the Himalayas, those snowy peaks kissing the sky. They rose from a collision, still rising, even now, millimeter by millimeter. You could sit on a rock and never feel it move. But wait 1,000,000 years, and that rock might touch the stars. These movements are slow enough to lull you to sleep. Yet they carry the weight of empires, the pulse of history. They decide where islands appear, where oceans form, where volcanoes dream. The continents are not fixed. They wander, they drift, they dance. Once, all land was joined a single continent called Pangaea. Then the plates shifted. They pulled apart, sculpting the world you now see. What was once one became many. What was once still became song. This drifting is called continental drifting, ancient ballet written by pressure and time. You, sitting in your chair, lying in your bed, are part of this slow, ancient motion. You are never truly still. The land beneath you is moving, slowly carrying you across the planet. It's a journey you do not feel, but one your bones are part of. The earth doesn't breathe like a person. It breathes like a planet. In cycles of uplift and erosion, spreading and subduction, folding and faulting. Each movement takes ages, but every piece matters. Sometimes this breath becomes too heavy. The crust buckles, pressure builds, and a chamber of magma begins to stir. In places like Yellowstone or Toba, the Earth's exhale becomes too deep. It doesn't just release, erupts, but not yet. For now, the Earth is only shifting, stretching, its shoulders rolling in its sleep, exhaling soft tremors across its bones. You feel none of it, but the signs are always there. Volcanic arcs trace the curve of subduction zones. Earthquakes ripple along transformed faults like the San Andreas. The Mito Show, ridges long, underwater mountains mark the lines where crust is born. It is a map of Earth's breath, drawn in stone and fire. You may think of land as permanent, but permanence is only a pause, one that stretches long enough to build cities, paint skies, love and lose, and love again. But underneath, the land is only lending you its stillness. Think of the Andes rising from the ocean's edge, or Japan's islands perched along a trembling boundary, or the Great Rift Valley, slowly pulling Africa into pieces. All these are breaths vast, geological size that shape the future. And what feeds these breaths? Heat, deep, constant, churning heat. The same energy that once forged the planet, still glowing in its core. A leftover from Earth's birth, and a whisper of its heart. This heat fuels convection in the mantle's low, spiraling movements of hot rock rising, cool rock sinking. It's like a lava lamp in slow motion. And this, more than anything else, drives the plate, breathes the crust, reshapes the world. From the center of the earth to the edge of the sky, the heat pulses outward, moving continents like leaves in a tide, and you soft and human. Brief as a blinkar, here for just a flicker of it. But still, you are part of the breathing earth. Its warmth touches your souls. Its rhythms echo in your heartbeat. You walk across cracks invisible to the eye faults, buried under soil and story. You build on land shaped by long-forgotten collisions. You drink from rivers carved by rising mountains and shifting stone. Every part of your day is stitched into this deep planetary breath, The ground beneath your pillow was once part of a different continent. The rocks near your feet were once beneath the sea. Your world has been folded, broken, lifted, and reimagined, and still it breathes. You are not above this breath. You are inside it. You are made from it. The calcium in your bones, the iron in your blood, born from deep earth and deeper stars. So, as you drift to sleep tonight, feel that ancient rhythm, not in panic, but in awe, not in fear, but in comfort. The earth breathes, and so do you. You share the same cycles, rise and fall, build and release, stillness and motion, waiting and becoming. It is a bond older than language, older than memory. And while you sleep, the crust will keep drifting. The mantle will rise and fall. The plates will dance their slow, secret dance. And the chambers beneath certain valleys will quietly gather. One of those chambers is no ordinary vessel of fire. It is vast, growing, hidden in plain sight. And as the earth breathes around it, something begins to build. Something that does not shout, but waits. Asterisk. There are places on earth that seem impossibly calm. Places where elk wander through open meadows, where rivers drift without rush, where steam curls up through rocks as if the planet itself is sighing. These are not the places you associate with danger. They are places of quiet stillness, so complete it feels like forever. But below that silence, something grows. Not quickly, not noisily, but steadily. There is no ticking clock, no smoke, no warnings carved in the hills. Only pressure, heat, time. You lie on your back in a valley ringed by distant mountains. The sky is wide above you, blue and soft. You cannot see it, but beneath your spine, the earth is swelling. Not enough for you to feel. Not enough to shake a single blade of grass. This is not a volcano in the way you imagine. There's no peak, no molten mouth, no conical tower breathing fire into the sky. This is a caldera, vast, sunken bowl formed by ancient collapse. And below it lies a chamber of molten rock, the size of 100 cities. It didn't arrive all at once. It began with small pulses of magma rising through the crust like slow-moving light. Each pulse pulled in pockets, melting stone, fusing minerals, spreading outward. Not enough to erupt. Just enough to erupt. Just enough to stretch the land above inch by inch, decade. This hidden chamber is called a magma reservoir. And like a hidden lake, beneath the ice, it grows silently. It presses upward, ever so gently, deforming the surface above. The land may bulge a few centimeters. Trees may lean, unaware. The rock Above the chamber is not solid, it's fractured, complex, crisscrossed with faults and cracks. It breathes too, responding to the slow tide of heat beneath it. As the magma expands, the pressure builds. The chamber becomes more than a reservoir. It becomes a question waiting for an answer. Scientists monitor these regions carefully. Satellites measure ground uplift with astonishing precision. Sensors detect tremors too faint for the skin to feel. Gas emissions are studied like whispers from deep within the Earth's lungs. Yellowstone is one such place, a vast park, a gentle wonderland. Hot springs bubble, geysers hiss, bison graze in the steam. But beneath the beauty, the chamber stirs enormous. Ancient, unresolved, it erupted once, 2.1 million years ago. Then again, 1.3 million years ago. And again, 640,000 years ago. Each time the sky darkened, the earth changed. The chamber, emptied and began again. But a supervolcano does not announce its presence with fire. It announces with silence. The long, waiting silence of magma rising without release. The kind of silence that lingers for tens of thousands of years. You imagine this chamber like a balloon deep underground. As magma fills it, the pressure inside increases. If the crust remains strong, the pressure is absorbed. But if the crust weakens, if a fracture opens, if the wrong kind of rock fails, then the pressure finds a way out. And when it does not escape gently. It does not form a lava flow. It does not build a cone. It explodes. In a supereruption, the chamber collapses in on itself. All the rock above it falls downward, and the magma rushes upward to fill. The void, ash blasts into the sky. Pyroclastic flows race across the land. A whole region is rewritten in an afternoon, but for now, none of that has happened. Right now, you are here in the moment before, in the long inhale before the exhale, in the chapter that begins not with flame, but with pressure. Pressure is not the enemy. It is the language of Earth's interior. Mountains rise under pressure. Diamonds form in it. Life itself is shaped by what it must withstand, and so too is a supervolcano. It is not a sudden violence, but a long becoming. It is made of magma, yes, but also of time, of silence, of geological patience. It is crafted in chambers, not by chaos, but by slow accumulation. Beneath the caldera, the magma is not pure. It mixes with gases: carbon dioxide, sulfur, water, vaporal trapped in the melt. These gases want to expand. They are compressed now, dissolved in the molten rock like breath, waiting to be released. The more magma accumulates, the more gas it holds. And when the pressure becomes too great, these gases separate, forming bubbles. Bubbles rise, combine, grow, and eventually they make the magma more buoyant, more unstable, more eager to escape. You can think of it like a soda bottle. When shaken, the pressure inside builds until the cap is released. Then the bubbles erupt, and the liquid follows. But in a supervolcano, the cap is miles of solid rock. And when that cap breaks, it's not so it's Earth's memory that escapes. Yet, none of this is happening now. Now the magma sleeps. It expands slightly, inching outward, reshaping chambers that have been waiting longer than human language. It doesn't move in fear or fury. It simply continues. There are signs, of course, subtle changes that scientists monitor with quiet care. They measure the tilt of the land, the gases in the air, the chemistry of the ground. They peer into the crust with seismic waves, mapping the hidden reservoir like a doctor listening to a heartbeat through bone. But knowing does not mean predicting, because the making of a supervolcano is not a countdown. It is a cycle, a story told in magma and silence. And silence, as always, is hard to read. You may wonder, why does the earth do this? Why gather so much fire beneath a peaceful field? But the earth has no intention, no plan. It only follows its own rules. Heat rises, pressure builds, rock responds, and from this, patterns emerge. Some regions become hotspots, persistent plumes of magma rising through the mantle. Others sit on subduction zones, where crust melts and feeds volcanic arcs. And a few rare places, like Yellowstone, combine the right heat, the right crust, and the right time. So tonight, as you imagine the earth beneath you, imagine not just stone and soil. Imagine a breathing, changing body, a world making decisions in heat and pressure far below the reach of your senses, and know that you are part of its quiet becoming. The supervolcano is not evil. It is not kind. It is simply part of how Earth works. It is made of the same processes that built mountains, opened oceans, and brought forth life. It is power without anger, fire without fury, time without mercy. You will never hear its footsteps. You will never feel its breath on your cheek. But one day it may rise, and the sky may carry the memory of its silence into every corner of the world. But not yet. Tonight, the chamber waits. The crust holds. The pressure, though building, is still content to wait. And you, lying still, are witness to that waiting. Your dreams drift above one of nature's greatest powers. You are held not just by gravity, but by the quiet certainty of deep time. The same time that made mountains will one day unmake them. And when that time comes, when the chamber can hold no more, the earth will not whisper. It will speak in ash, in sky, in silence turn to storm. And you will find yourself beneath a sky that forgets how to be blue. Asterisk, it does not begin with fire. It begins with stillness, so perfect, it feels like a held breath, a hush that spreads across the ground like morning frost. The animals notice first. They always do. Birdsong fades. Wolves tilt their heads toward the horizon, alert to a frequency your ears can't detect. Even the wind seems to retreat, as if the world is making room for something it cannot name. And then, without warning, the earth, exhale, it begins beneath the ground, where pressure has been collecting for thousands of years. The magma chamber, swollen and restless, has found its path to the surface. The rock above fractures like glass struck in silence. And in that instant, the world changes. A column of ash and gas bursts into the sky with a violence beyond imagination. It climbs 10, 20, 30 kilometers higher than storms, higher than weather. It pierces the stratosphere, where the air is thin and silent, and there it begins to spread. You are miles away, perhaps hundreds, but within hours, your sky begins to dim. The blue fades, washed in gray and amber, like dusk misplaced at noon. The sun flickers behind veils of ash, its warmth dulled, its light blurred. It is not the lava that touches you, not the heat, not the fire. It is the ash fiend, soft, endless. It falls like dry snow, but carries no cold, only silence. You breathe it in before you realize. Your lungs notice its dryness. Your eyes sting. It clings to your skin, your clothes, the leaves outside your window. It piles on rooftops and fields, soft but suffocating, and with it comes the darkness. Not night, not storm, something stranger. A dimming of the world from above, as if the sky has forgotten how to shine. You light candles at midday. Your clock says noon, but your eyes say twilight. The eruption does not end in hours. It continues for days, sometimes weeks, pulse after pulse, sending new ash higher, farther. The sky becomes a canvas of drifting sorrow. Pyroclastic flows tear through the land closest to the caldera. Hot avalanches of gas, ash, and broken rock. They move faster than sound, unstoppable, erasing all in their path. Forests turn to ash in seconds. Rivers boil. Stone crumbles like sand. But most of the world never sees the crater. Most of the world meets only the ash, the fine powder that rides the wind. It circles the globe, lifted by currents that cross oceans and climb mountains. It falls in places that have never heard of the volcano. The sunlight weakens, photosynthesis slows, plants strain, crops falter, the rhythm of life so delicately, tuned to light, begins to lose its step. Temperatures drop not just locally, but worldwide. It is called a volcanic winter, a season stretched across years, born from one single eruption. The planet cools as the sun hides behind sulfur and dust. Rain patterns shift. Drought touches one coast while floods visit another. Oceans cool, winds change, and all of it began not with a scream, but with pressure building in quiet chambers. Below, all of it, the echo of Earth's long-awaited breath. History remembers these moments in fragments. A ring of black ice in an ancient tree. A sudden dip in growth found in old pollen trapped in lake beds. A lullaby spoken in ash, passed down through layers of time. Some scholars believe the eruption of Toba, nearly 74,000 years ago, dimmed the sky for a decade, that it changed the trajectory of human evolution, that a single event reduced our species to a fragile few, huddled in caves beneath a cold, gray sky. And yet, here you are descended from survivors and Yellowstone still. Sleeping has done it before, not once, but many times, each eruption larger than the last, each leaving behind calderas, scars, and stories written in stone. The world continues through it, not unchanged, but resilient. Life adapts, shifts, finds new rhythms. The darkness doesn't last forever, but while it stays, it rewrites the map of what we knew. You sit by the window now, the sky still gray. Ash coats the trees, the roads, the silence. Birds are quiet. People whisper. Even memory seems softer in this kind of light. The supervolcano does not only erupt, and in its wake it offers blankness. A canvas wiped clean, not by choice, but by inevitability. An invitation to begin again without promise. But not all endings are cruel. Sometimes the world needs to pause, to hush, to reset, to remind itself that it is ancient and still dreaming. So you breathe in gently the dust of things that once were. The remains of old forests, of melted stone, of ancient oceans boiled away. And you exhale the thought that this, too, shall become memory. That this day, this gray sky, will one day be found in a future layer of rock. You are part of this record. your footsteps, your stillness, your witnessing. You are written in the dust, folded into the ash. You are the observer of something vast and slow and unstoppable. And though it seems quiet now, the consequences ripple outward. Seeds planted in altered soil, winds changed forever, and minds yours among them begin to ask questions whispered by ash. What else sleeps beneath the world we walk on? You cannot undo the eruption, but you can listen to the sky, to the soil, to the stories told in dust, and to the past which remembers what the present forgets. And far beneath the ground, beneath layers of buried memory, lie the scars of eruptions long past, echoes waiting to be read. The titans of the past do not sleep quietly. Close your eyes and let the gray sky fade. Let the falling ash settle, not on rooftops, but on memory. Let time slow until it begins to flow in reverse, not like a movie played backward, but like a river meandering upstream. You drift gently into the past, not just years or centuries, but thousands, tens of thousands of years. A world not yet mapped, not yet written. A world already shaped by fire. The ground you lie upon carries a lineage of eruptions. Each layer of soil holds secrets thin. Sheets of ash, scorched minerals, ghosted forests. The deeper you go, the louder the story becomes. But this is not a story told in words. It's told in silence, in stone, in trace. The titans of the past were not myth, but magma, and their footprints are calderous immense, sunken scars across the planet's skin. Vast hollows where land once stood proud, now ringed by peaks born of collapse. They sleep still, but their dreams remain etched into the world. You find yourself drifting above Toba, in what is now Indonesia. 74,000 years ago, it roared to life with a force beyond reckoning. A column of ash so vast it spread across hemispheres. A darkness so deep it may have dimmed the stars themselves. Toba's eruption was not just largit, was transformative. It left a lake behind, calm and clear, filling the hollow it carved from the earth. But in the silence that followed, the world cooled. Genetic evidence whispers that humanity nearly vanished, thinned by volcanic winter. Still, life went on. Green returned to the great outland. But the echo remains in ice cores from Greenland, in layers of ash buried beneath India. A global footprint from a single breath of fire. Now you float across the ocean, to North America, to Yellowstone, vast and tranquil, a place of geysers and grazing herds. But beneath it lies a wound that opened 3 times, each greater than the last. Each one a titan's sigh, reshaping the land, rewriting the sky. The Yellowstone calderas are not peaks, but bowls, wide as cities, ancient as language. They hide in plain sight, surrounded by beauty and silence. Yet beneath them, a chamber waits a molten memory, slowly building again. Move now to Taupo in New Zealand. Its eruption, less than 2,000 years ago, was witnessed by the ancestors of the Mbori. The lake that fills its place gleams peacefully in the sun, but beneath it, stone remembers heat. Water remembers flame. There are others, too. Long Valley in Californian, eerily as large as Yellowstone. Campi Flegrei, near Naples, its name means burning fields. Blagaria in Colorado, an eruption so massive it defies modern comprehension. The scale of these events is hard to hold in your hands. Imagine an eruption 1,000 times greater than Mount St. Helens. Imagine ash reaching the upper edge of the sky. Imagine the land collapsing into itself and the world dimming for years. But these are not the catastrophes of fiction. They are real, measured, catalogued, buried beneath our feet. We know them not by memory, but by traces, microscopic ash in glaciers, tree rings frozen in silence, lakes transformed to stone. Tree rings tell stories in their widths. Years with little growth mark colder, darker times. And in some years, across continents, the trees whisper in unison. Something happened, something vast, something gray. In the deepest ice, bubbles of air remain captured breaths from ancient skies. Scientists read them like pages, searching for sulfur, for carbon, for signs of smoke. A spike in sulfate, a sudden drop in temperature, all hinting at an eruption that veiled the sun. The earth remembers even when we forget. And though the titans sleep now, their presence lingers. Not to haunt, but to remind that the planet moves in cycles we are only beginning to read. And just as stone holds memory, so do stories. In cultures across the world, there are tales of a sun that vanished, of winters that lasted too long, of skies that turned dark and earth that trembled. Perhaps they are myth, or perhaps they are memory, passed from mouth to mouth. The Aboriginal Australians speak of fire from beneath, of mountains that rose and vanished. The Mbori speak of lakes that boiled, of lands reshaped by unseen forces. The Hopi tell of worlds ended and reborn. And all these stories echo what science now confirms. The past was not always peaceful. Still, these supervolcanoes are not constant. Destroyers, they do not rage endlessly. They erupt, Yes, but they also sleep, sometimes for 100,000 years. Grass grows where ash once fell. Deer drink from the crater's lake. Children play where magma once carved silence. The land forgets, but only on the surface. Below, the earth remembers the fire. And with each pulse of magma, with each seismic breath, it moves one step closer to remembering it again. But memory can also be a guide. By studying the past, we better understand the future. Each ancient eruption is a chapter, each caldera a book, each layer of ash a sentence in Earth's long autobiography. That you, listening now, are part of this record. You walk on the shoulders of giants of mountains, mountains see, mound reshaped. You breathe the air once darkened by fire, now cleared by time. You are the reader of a story written in stone, and maybe, just maybe, you are also the storyteller, the one who carries these memories forward, who teaches what the trees know, what the glaciers whisper, so that one day, when another titan stirs, we are not surprised, only prepared, because supervolcanoes do not erase, they reveal. They show us the fragility of our moment. They stretch our understanding across epochs. And they remind us that we live not above the earth, but within it. So sleep now, not in fear, but in knowing that you belong to something old and vast, that the earth has turned gray before and bloomed again, and that even the most powerful breath must one day be followed by stillness. How do you listen to a ticking clock that has no hands? What if the next eruption is already waiting, silent, shapeless, patient? Asterisk time, as you know it, is measured in neat little boxes. Minutes, hours, days, a tick forward, each a tiny footstep. But the earth does not wear a watch. Its time flows in pulses, in pressures, in long silences between brief, overwhelming change. You sit at your desk or lie in your bed, thinking of tomorrow, next week, next year. But beneath you, another kind of clock is ticking. You can call it that. No hands, no numbers. Just the slow swelling of magma and the subtle flecks of stone. We long for signs, for forecasts. We look to science to tell us when the next eruption will come. We imagine a countdown, a red circle on a calendar, an alert on a screen. But the truth is stranger and slower. The Earth's rhythms are not predictable in the way weather is. They are not driven by rotation or orbit, but by heat. And heat moves like breath through stone, expanding, shifting, pooling in silence. You do not hear it, but scientists try to. They listen with seismometers, machines that detect the tiniest tremble. They place GPS sensors on the land, watching for the slightest rise or fall. They study the chemistry of hot springs and gases bubbling from cracks. They map underground with echoes, with gravity, with satellite eyes, and still. The clock does not reveal its hands. Yellowstone, for instance, breathes slowly. The ground there lifts and falls over decades, sometimes meters, sometimes mere inches. Some years bring clusters of earthquakes. Others bring silence. None of it is conclusive. All of it is carefully recorded. You might ask, why can't we just? No, because Earth systems are not machines. They are tangled, living processes, full of feedback loops and hidden thresholds. One chamber may grow full and quiet. Another may erupt with no warning at all. Imagine trying to predict a heartbeat without ever seeing the heart, or reading the tides by watching a single ripple. This is the work of volcanology science without certainty, precision laced with humility. Still, we try. And in our trying, we begin to see patterns, not predictions, but probabilities. We learn from the past, layering eruptions like pages in a history book. We see that some supervolcanoes erupt every 100,000 years. Give or take 50 thou. It is not comforting. But it is real, asterisk, and so we learn to read signs differently. A bulge in the ground is not a countdown, it's a suggestion. A swarm of earthquakes is not a warning, it's a whisper. Each signal is a clue in a language still being learned. We use tools: LiDAR, thermal imaging, gas spectrometry. We build models, run simulations, test scenarios. We drill cores deep into the crust, pulling up ancient layers of ash and rock. We ask the earth to tell us what it remembers, but magma doesn't speak plainly. It stirs in slow spirals, changes direction without reason. Its path is shaped by rock density, fault lines, pressure gradients, a dance of molten thought through stone corridors we cannot fully map. And yet, we are getting closer. Artificial intelligence helps us detect patterns once invisible. Supercomputers simulate eruptions in digital landscapes. Satellite networks monitor ground shifts in real time. The data piles up like snow, each flake unique, but building toward a shape. Still, the shape isn't always clear, because predicting a supervolcano is like predicting a dream. It moves in feelings, in impulses, in tension. And sometimes tension releases in small size. A geyser, a tremor, a minor venting. Other times it waits and waits, and then speaks in thunder. You feel that waiting in your chest, even if you don't name it. It's a kind of planetary anticipation, folded into your awareness. You know, somehow, that Earth is not finished shaping itself, and that some changes come not in slow erosion, but in sudden, unstoppable motion. So, how do we live beside this knowledge, this knowledge? How do we prepare for a moment we cannot schedule? We learn, we plan, we build better systems, better warnings, better maps. We teach, so memory is not lost in silence. In places like Naples, where Campi flake gray sleeps beneath millions, emergency plans evolve constantly. In Iceland, where fire meets ice, communities drill for resilience. In Japan, Chile, the Pacific Northwest earthquake drills, volcanic alerts, evacuation routes. These are our way of living beside the unknown. And still, we know the earth will not ask permission. It will not wait for readiness. Its clock has no hands, but it does not pause. It simply continues, with or without our noticing. You are part of this rhythm, even now. Your days may feel small, but they are shaped by the ground beneath you. You live on a stage set by forces too vast to see, but you are not helpless. You are the first species to study the ground it walks on, to map its tremors, to understand, however imperfectly, that the earth is alive beneath your feet. You cannot stop the magma, but you can listen, and sometimes listening is enough. It tells you where not to build. It tells you when to be cautious and when to be still. It tells you that power and peace can share the same ground, that even danger, when understood, becomes part of wisdom. The magma stirs, but slowly. The land shifts, but gently. And between these motions, you live, growing, wondering, resting. You do not need to know the hour to know the importance of time. So you close your eyes tonight, not in fear, but in awareness. The earth is a teacher without a schedule, a clock, but its lessons still arrive. You sleep beside a mystery that cannot be solved, only studied. A tension that cannot be unraveled, only respected. A future that cannot be planned, only prepared for. And somewhere, deep below, the clock ticks on, though it has no hands. And when the ticking stops, when the pressure breaks and the sky darkens, what follows is not just fire, but a new kind of silence. A silence filled not with waiting, but with ash. Asterisk, the fire ends. But the story doesn't. You might imagine that once the eruption fades, peace returns. That after the thunder and falling ash, the earth simply exhales and resumes. But a supervolcano reshapes not just the land, reshapes the sky, the air, the way the world breathes. And so we begin again, not with flame, but with what floats. In the flame's wake, the ash does not fall in hours. It falls in weeks. Tiny glass-like particles, fine, jagged, and persistent, drift through the air like unnatural snow. They cover rooftops, settle in lungs, weigh down trees. But it is what rises higher that matters most. Sulfur dioxide, ejected in vast quantities, reaches the stratosphere. There, above the clouds, it meets water vapor and becomes something else, a veil of aerosol steamy droplets that scatter sunlight. The sky becomes hazy, diffused, almost pearlescent, and the world begins to cool. It happens subtly at first, a chill in the morning, a frost that arrives too early. Then seasons begin to blur. Spring arrives late, and summer never fully warms. Rain patterns shift. Winds falter. The jet stream stumbles. You can't feel a volcanic winter as you feel snow or fire. But you can see its effects in the faces of farmers, in the failure of crops, in the way hunger returns to places that once overflowed. History has kept these memories, though quietly. In 1815, Mount Tambora erupted, a much smaller event than a supervolcano, yet powerful enough to echo across continents. The following year, 1816, became known as the year without a summer. Frost in July, snow in June, crops that withered in cold soil. People starved, not from fire, but from the absence of warmth, the absence of rhythm. The earth's breath, for a moment, out of sync. Now, imagine this on the scale of a supercano, LCANONN. Eruption, like Toba, for instance, could cool the planet by 3 to 5 degrees Celsius. That might not sound like much until you realize the last ice age was only about 6 degrees cooler than now. And cooling doesn't distribute evenly. Some places freeze, others flood. And all of it begins with the sky. You step outside and look up. The sun is there, but faded, like a coin underwater. The light is scattered, distant, blue, tinged with gray. Photosynthesis slows. Plants hesitate. Forests grow quiet. Without sun, crops fail. Without crops, animals suffer. Without rhythm, ecosystems unravel, not catastrophically, but delicately, like threads pulled loose. Life becomes uncertain, fragile, confused, and the air itself, even from oceans away. The sharp sting in your throat, the dryness in your eyes, the subtle heaviness in your chest. These are the breath marks of a planet trying to reset, not cruelly, simply, unavoidably. Even oceans feel it. Cooler surface waters, slow currents. Coral reefs struggle, caught between darkness and acidity. The world's great heat ingenates atmosphere, and seas begins to sputter. Famine rises, not in one place, but in many. Food chains collapse, not by explosion, but by erosion, one quiet absence at a time. And people, fragile but stubborn, must adapt. You imagine communities bundling together through long, dim seasons. You imagine fields that no longer grow. You imagine smoke from hearth fires trying to warm rooms that will not remember spring. You imagine hunger not just in the body, but in the soul. And still, the ash drifts in the far north. Glaciers may begin to creep forward. Snow that once melted now stays. Light reflects off new ice, and cooling becomes its own echo. Even creatures far from the caldera change. Bird migrations falter. Insects vanish. Frogs fall silent. The sky no longer tells them when to sing, and through all of it, you wait for the clouds to clear, for the rhythm to return, for the earth to remember how to breathe normally again. Eventually, the aerosols fall, not quickly, but slowly, over years. Rain brings some of them down. Wind carries the rest to sea, and light softly, quietly returns. The first real sunrise after years of gray feels holy, not in any religious sense, but in the heart. To see color against to feel warmth that is not fire is to remember the gift of light. But some things do not return. Species lost, lives ended, cultures altered, climate reshaped, even subtly. Memory held in the rings of trees, in the chemistry of snow, in the stories of survivors. We call it a supervolcano. But what it really is a threshold, a line between two different versions of the world. One before and one after the fire is brief, but the cold can last a lifetime. And yet, even in volcanic winter, life continues. Not untouched, but not undone. Resilient, adapting, finding new rhythms. Because life is not only shaped by fire, it is shaped by the return of light. You feel that truth in your chest as you rest beneath this imagined ash-filled sky. You feel the weight of what could come and the wonder of what might still grow afterward. You cannot stop the wind. You cannot unpour the ash, but you can understand. You can prepare. You can witness. You breathe now, not just for yourself, but for all the lives shaped by air, the plants, the oceans, the people, the sky. You are part of the pattern. Even in the dark, even when the sun forgets how to shine. And as the skies begin to clear, you wonder, could we see it coming next time? Could we learn to listen to the quiet and predict the storm hidden inside the silence. Asterisk, the sky has begun to clear. The ash has settled, though not vanished. The air is quieter now, but beneath that quiet lives a question, one that hums softly. In the minds of all who study the earth, can we ever know truly when a sleeping giant will wake? You sit with this question, as still as stone, while the scientists move gently through the dark. They do not shout their answers, they listen, with instruments more sensitive than skin, to a world that rarely speaks in words. Beneath the surface, deep in the crust, magma shifts, not loudly, not quickly, but always. And so, researchers build their tools to catch whispers, seismometers that sense the lightest tremble, asterisk GPS stations that track the land rising by millimeters, and satellites that watch the breathing earth. From above, it is a kind of astronomy turned inward, not of stars, but of stone. The earth sends signals. It always has. But they are layered, tangled, and sometimes deceptive. A rise in ground might be magma, or groundwater swelling after rain. A cluster of earthquakes could mean movement, or nothing more than settling crust. Gas emissions might spike with rising heat, or with a decay of deep minerals. Asterisk prediction is not prophecy. It is patience, it is probability, and it is never perfect. Volcanologists build models. They simulate eruptions using thousands of variables: temperature, pressure, gas content, rock composition. They run these models on supercomputers again and again, watching for paths that lead to eruption and those that don't. And yet, the magma doesn't read the models. A supervolcano like Yellowstone may show signs for decades, or erupt suddenly, or never erupt again. Asterisk, we don't know. What we do know is this: the more we observe, the more subtle the patterns become. Take in interferometric synthetic aperture radar, a technique that uses satellites to measure changes in ground height with centimeter precision. With it, we've watched the caldera at Yellowstone rise and fall like a slow breath. Some years it swells, some years it sinks, all without eruption. We also have gas spectrometry instruments placed near vents, measuring carbon dioxide, sulfur dioxide, hydrogen sulfide, gases that escape long before magma surfaces. Their changing ratios tell stories of magma composition and depth. Then there are earthquake swarms, clusters of small quakes that ripple beneath volcanic systems. They might precede an eruption, or they might mean nothing at all. It is like watching a sleeper twitch. You can't tell if they're about to wake or simply dreaming more deeply. Still, each signal adds to a growing language, a vocabulary of unrest, and slowly, scientists are learning to speak it. They look to the past for clues, reconstructing ancient eruptions from ash layers, pumice deposits, and carbon-dated charcoal buried beneath flows. The more we learn about what came before, the better we understand what might come again. But even with all these tools, we remain uncertain because Earth doesn't operate on our schedule. It moves by its own clock, whose hands are invisible, whose hours are thousands of years long. This does not mean we are helpless. It means we must be humble. Preparedness grows not from certainty, but from possibility. In volcanic regions around the world, governments and scientists collaborate, creating early warning systems, evacuation routes, risk maps. They hold drills, teach schools, train first responders, not because eruption is guaranteed, but because lives can be saved if it comes. In 2021, La Palma erupted, not a supervolcano, but still powerful. Because of monitoring, no lives were lost. The science worked, not by predicting a date, but by reading the rising tension. You imagine a world where we do this for all sleeping giants, not waiting until it's too late, but learning the language of unrest before it becomes disaster. But even then, some mysteries remain beyond our reach. There may never be a way to say with certainty, it will erupt next week, or next year, or within our lifetime. Instead, we learn to live with uncertainty, not as fear, but as awareness. We design with flexibility. We teach with honesty. We plan with care. We respect the power beneath us without needing to conquer it. And perhaps that is the true evolution of our species. Not that we can stop eruptions, but that we can imagine them before they happen. That we can hear the whispers and answer with preparation instead of panic. That we can look at a caldera, silent, beautiful, and see not only a crater, but a conversation. You feel that now, don't you? That tension between knowing and not knowing, between science and mystery, stillness and a potential for change. And maybe that tension lives inside you. You are part of this planet, not separate from its pressures, but shaped by them. And like the magma chamber, you carry pressure, build it slowly, release it gently, or all at once. But that's for another chapter. For now, rest in the knowing that we do not need all the answers to walk wisely through uncertainty. The earth will speak in tremors, in gas, in slow rising ground, and we curious, cautious, evolving, will learn to listen better with each passing year. Because sometimes, to understand the volcano, you must look within. The ground isn't the only thing that holds pressure. Asterisk beneath your calm surface. Something stirs. It does not erupt, not yet, but it simmers. It churns. It builds slowly over time. This is not the earth, now is you. And you begin to see. The volcano is not only out there, deep in the crust, it lives in you. 2. Your thoughts are like tectonic plates, shifting gently, sometimes grinding. Memories are buried like sediment, compressed beneath time. And emotions, like magma, swell when the weight above presses too hard. 2. You don't explode often, but when you do, the pressure has been rising for a long while. You are made of layers, just like the earth. The outer self, the surface, the steady crust that smiles and nods. Beneath that, the softer, rockier moods, your fears, and deeper. Still, the molten center, glowing with energy you don't always understand. Think about how your stress builds. Not with loudness, but with accumulation. A task unfinished, a word unspoken, a fear unshared. You carry these like the earth carries magma. You hold them until they can no longer stay quiet. Sometimes it vents gently a sigh, a tear, a conversation that softens the pressure. Other times it surprises you. A word too sharp, a feeling too big, a silence that finally breaks. The eruption comes not from anger, but from being full. This is the mirror the earth holds up to you. It doesn't just shake cities. It teaches how energy waits, how stillness is not always peace, and how pressure is not weakness, but potential waiting for release. There is a term in psychology, emotional regulation, the ability to notice pressure, to breathe into it, to guide it gently outward. It is not unlike a volcano that vents steam before it explodes. Small releases that prevent catastrophe. Some people meditate. Others run, sing, cry, create. These are the geysers of the soul. They let off just enough heat so the inner self doesn't fracture. You may not see them as science, but they are nature in action. Your nervous system, for example, is its own seismic network. When you're overwhelmed, it senses tremors. Your heart races, your breathing changes, your muscles tense. Like the earth preparing for release, and yet, like scientists watching a caldera, you can choose not to panic at every signal. You can learn to wait, to observe, to ask what this rising heat wants to say. Maybe it is sadness, maybe fear, maybe joy that's been locked away for too long. Magma is not always destructive. It can build new ground. Volcanoes create islands. They form mountains. They add land to the world. And your eruptions, too, can create space for something new. When you finally speak what was silent, when you express what was buried, you are not breaking, you are transforming, becoming more whole. You begin to see yourself differently. Not as someone unstable, but as someone vast, layered, and alive. You hold deep forces. And learning how to listen to them without fear is its own kind of science. It starts with attention. When you notice tension in your jaw, your chest, your breath, that is your seismograph. That is your body asking for stillness or release. When you pause to journal, to walk slowly, to whisper a truth aloud, that is your early warning system. That is your inner volcano venting in kindness. And when the eruption does come, because sometimes it must, you learn to shape it, to speak without harm, to let ash fall where it must, and then begin again. This is resilience, not the absence of heat, but the ability to carry it safely. You are not alone in this. All of us carry volcanoes. We erupt in different ways at different times. We are not broken. We are geologic. Look at the person beside you. They too hold layers, cracks, and pressures and chambers of molten emotion waiting for language. Sometimes what they need is not correction, but space, top space to cool, space to breathe, space to be held while the ash settles. The earth, in all its might, is never judged for erupting. Why should you be? You begin to trust that your heat is not dangerous, that your pressure is not shameful, that silence is not strength unless it's chosen, that speaking, shaking, changing, these are natural. The human volcano is not a threat, it is a teacher. And you, in listening, become wiser. You are learning to time your own internal seasons, to sense when you're swelling with emotion, to build bridges before the fault line breaks, to find safety in softness, not just in suppression. Some volcanoes never erupt again, but they still shape the land around them. Their presence changes rivers, directs weather, draws life. So do you. Even when quiet, you are changing the world. Even in your stillness, something meaningful rises. Even in your uncertainty, there is purpose in the pressure. You lie here now, aware of your inner heat, but no longer afraid of it. It is not there to destroy you, only to remind you that you are powerful and alive. Your breath moves like wind through cooled ash. Your thoughts settle like dust after eruption, and your heart quiet, glowing remembers the magma. But it does not let it rule. You are not just reacting anymore. You are listening, observing, becoming, and that is enough. Now, imagine the world quiet, again rebuilt, waiting. If the ash wiped the slate clean, what would we choose to remember? What would we build from the silence? Asterisk, the ash has settled. The skies, once thick with smoke, begin to part. The land lies quiet beneath a pale sun, not broken, not gone, but blank. You imagine it now. This hushed and emptied world, not as a graveyard, but as a canvas. After a supervolcano has breathed its fire and shadow, after the winds have carried the last of the dust across oceans, what remains is not just ruin, but possibility. Asterisk, this is where your mind begins to wander. If the world began again, if the slate were swept clean by nature's own hand, what would we choose to draw? Cities are gone, softened into outlines beneath ash. Roads disappear beneath layers of silence. Time slows. Priorities shift. There is no rush to return to how things were. Instead, there is space-wide blank. And listening in the wake of eruption, life always returns, but never in the same pattern. Plants root in cracks, animals migrate differently, and humans, if they survive, must decide what to. Remember, remember, you lie in this thought as if it were a warm current. No urgency, just imagining. Would we rebuild cities the same way? Would we place our homes again atop sleeping giants? Or would we listen finally to the pulse beneath our feet? Would we treasure the things we once dismissed? The sound of birds returning to a silent sky, the softness of soil unspoiled by smoke, the first green leaf rising from gray ash. What knowledge would we carry forward? Would we teach our children not just science, but the wisdom of slowness? Would we build not for height, but for harmony? You imagine schools teaching geology beside poetry, that both are ways of reading the earth. You imagine leaders who speak with caution, understanding how fragile civilization can be, when nature reminds us who truly holds time. A supervolcano does not care for borders. It does not ask who is rich or poor. Its silence before eruption is democratic. Its ash touches every leaf, every lung, every roof. So perhaps, in this imagined rebirth, we remember that we are one species, one people, scattered across the surface of a living, breathing world. Would we still chase speed, tarot? Would we learn from the lava's patience? Would we fill our cities with noise again? Or would we leave space for silence? And more deeply, what parts of ourselves would we choose to carry forward? Would we keep the pressure locked inside? Would we forget the warnings whispered in stone? Or would we listen truly, fully this time? Because the earth has always been speaking in its eruptions, in its calderas, in the way it rebuilds. It shows us that destruction is not the end, but the beginning of something new. You see it in the land around Yellowstone, where wildflowers bloom above buried heat. You see it in Indonesia, where villages sit atop cooled lava, alive with music and memory. Even after the worst, life returns, and so would we. But we'd return, changed if we choose to, humbled, a little slower, a little softer with each other, and a little more in tune with the trembling ground beneath us. You close your eyes now and walk through this imagined world. A world remade by fire, but rewritten by care. There are gardens where parking lots once sprawled. Wind turbines turn where factories once belched. And beneath the surface, the earth still murmurs, not in threat, but in rhythm. You remember, in this dream, that we are stewards, not masters, not owners, just brief travelers resting on the cooled crust of a planet that gives and takes with the same breath you breathe in now, long, slow, full. And the air is clear again. You listen in, the world is still, not empty, just waiting, waiting for what we might become after the fire. Because in the silence that follows, there is more than loss. There is potential. And in that, there is peace. You drift now through this new earth, its ash-carved valleys and sunlit silence, its gentler people and softer stories. And you wonder, if we could begin again, not just rebuild, but reimagine, what kind of world would we wake up in? Would it be quieter? Would it be kinder? Would we remember the volcano not just as something that ended the old, but something that gifted the chance to begin again? You don't have the answers, but you carry the question like a small flame. And sometimes that's all it takes to start something new. And as the last ember fades and the world lies quiet again beneath the stars, you are left with one final echo, not of fire, but of choice. The earth will shape itself, but what will we shape in return?